And now here is an announcement for teachers. The Science Workshop book, published by Longman at £2.25, is now available from the publisher and not from the BBC. Teachers may also like to know that Cambridge University Press publish a series of booklets to accompany the radio series for 8 to 10-year-olds, Maths with a Story.
Paper for writing.
Paper for mopping up.
Paper for spending.
Paper for wrapping.
Paper for fun.
And paper for printing. Now, paper can be used in all sorts of different ways. Paper lampshade, paper bee, paper posters. You see lots of paper in advertising hoardings. But what exactly is paper? Well, one of the first things you notice about it is that it tears easily. And if you look at the torn edge through a lens, remember how to use the lens, make sure there's plenty of light, hold the lens up to your eye, and then bring the torn edge until it's sharply in focus. Now there, I can see little bits sticking out from the edge of the paper. And they're called fibers. Now, to look more closely at those fibers, I need to use a microscope. Now, I've arranged my microscope so that the light falls on top of the piece of newspaper. Now, if I look at the surface of the newspaper, I just adjust the focus, I can see the printing and I can see the mat of fibers. Well, that's as much detail as you can get using a microscope like this. But Malcolm's at the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, and they're able to look much more closely at paper.
Well, David, here at the Paper Sciences Department, they use a scanning electron microscope to look at paper. And Eileen here's the technician responsible for operating it. The piece of newspaper we're going to look at has been mounted on an aluminium stud and covered with a thin layer of gold. It's put in the chamber, switch on, and the microscope picture appears on this screen. And now you see in much more detail the fibres that make up the paper.
What magnification is that, Malcolm?
That's times 200, David. But with this microscope we can go much higher. Turn the knob to get 400 times magnification. Magnified 700 times. You can see that there are spaces between the fibres. And that's a single fibre. It's a sort of flattened tube. And if you look at the edge of the paper, you can see more clearly how the fibre tubes have been cut through. Well, there's one. Let's have a closer look. There you are, David. You wouldn't see a paper fibre more clearly using any other kind of microscope. That's magnified 3,000 times.
Well, that's very impressive, Malcolm. Don't go away. We'll need your help later on. So, paper is made from fibres, and it's easy to tear. Now, paper is often used as a wrapping material, but is all wrapping material made from fibres and easy to tear. Here's some wrapping foil. Now, that tears just as easily as paper. But I can't see any fibres. Let's get Malcolm to test that idea.
No problem there, David. This is what aluminium foil looks like. Not a fibre in sight, however closely you look. But that mark's not a fibre. It's a scratch on the surface of the aluminium.
Well, that's fine, Malcolm. What about plastic sheet? Now that tears easily too.
Well, this is plastic sheet, David. And again, no fibres.
One more thing, Malcolm. This piece of paper is made from cotton fibres. And of course, it's easy to tear. This handkerchief is also made from cotton fibres. But it isn't easy to tear.
No, it would be more difficult, David. The fibres are twisted together into threads and woven into a fabric. Well, that's why it's difficult to tear. It's not a mat of tangled fibres like paper.
Thank you, Malcolm. So, only paper is made from fibres and is easy to tear. Now we need to find out more about the difference between the cotton fibres in the paper and the cotton fibres in the fabric. This is a branch of a cotton plant with the cotton ready to be picked. When the cotton fruit dries out, it bursts open, and inside are these long cotton fibres. Hidden away inside the fibres are the seeds. When the seeds are separated, the long fibres are collected and go to the factories to be spun into threads. What's left on the seeds are the fibres that go to make paper. They're very short and have to be shaved off. This is a shaved seed, and here is a bundle of the short fibres that have been shaved off a number of seeds. You can't spin these, and these short cotton fibres are made into paper. Lillian's been finding out how it's done.
Well, David, I'm in a paper mill in Wookey Hole in Somerset. First of all, in this vat, the short cotton fibres that you were looking at are being mixed with water. At this stage, the mixture of fibres and water is like a thick porridge, as the fibres are really well soaked. There you are. At the same time, something else is happening. Inside here, the cotton fibres are being crushed and beaten. This kind of machine is known as a Hollander beater because it was first used in Holland. Now, you may think that beating the fibres is a very rough way to treat them, but in fact, David, this machine is doing a very exact and important job.
Since what's happening in the beater is so important, Lillian, let's go back to Malcolm. Expect he can show us what happens to the fibres.
Yeah, that's right, David. Well, first, let's look at a single cotton fibre before it's been beaten. And now, here's what it looks like after it's been beaten. Broken away from the fibre are tiny fibrils. We'll see later why the fibrils are important.
Thank you, Malcolm. Now, Lillian, what happens next?
Well, David, after the fibres have been beaten, a lot more water is added to the mixture. The beaten fibres are suspended. They're spread out evenly in the water, and they're being constantly stirred to keep them in suspension and stop them from sinking to the bottom of the vat. Now it's more like a watery milk than a thick porridge. The craftsman papermaker dips his wire mesh mould into the milky liquid and carefully lifts it out. The mould is put on one side for a moment to allow water to drain away. What's left on the wire mesh are the cotton fibres that will make the sheet of paper. The mat of fibres on the mesh is nearly 1/2 centimetre thick and still has a lot of water in it. It's just strong enough to be tipped onto a sheet of felt. Another felt is put on top of the fibre sheet, and the stack of interleaved felts and fibres is pushed into a large press. The layers of felt which have helped soak up the water are peeled off, and for the first time the sheet of fibres is strong enough to be picked up. The cotton fibres have now become a sheet of paper. The finished sheets of paper still have some water in them, so they're laid out on hammocks to dry naturally. So there we are, David. One sheet of high-quality Wookey Hole paper made from those short cotton fibres.
Thank you, Lillian. Now, Malcolm, can you show us why it is the fibres don't fall apart?
Well, David, this is where the fibrils are important. If we look at the finished sheet of paper, when it's made, as the water drains away, the fibrils get entangled with each other and with the fibres. Well, that's what holds them together. That's why beating is so important.
Thank you, Malcolm. And thank you very much for your help, Eileen. Well, now we've seen how paper is made, let's look at one way that it can be used. All these beautiful sculptures are made from paper, the best quality paper. And they're made by our studio guest today, Bruce Angrave. Hello, Bruce.
Hello, David.
Now, when I think of sculpture, I think of things that are shaped from wood, metal, or stone. And you choose paper. Why is that?
Well, paper is a marvelous material, you know. Nothing else behaves quite like it. I like it because it does what I want it to do. I'm basically a cartoonist.
And what do you actually do to the paper
Well,
to make it into sculpture?
I mean, obviously, the obvious things you can do with paper are bend them. Everybody knows that. You can also fold them. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But you can also bias it, which is a word I use. It doesn't mean anything except it describes it. You draw the paper under a ruler, and it goes into a cylindrical form. It stays like it. You can't do that with metal because it would kink and go wobbly. If you did it with plastic, it would go flat again. But paper has this curious quality of staying in shape when you do that to it.
I understand. And what else can you
And
do?
you can also score it, which is another peculiarity of paper. Scoring is cutting halfway through. And you don't have to do it in a straight line. You can do it in a wavy line if you like that. You can do it on the back as well if you like.
This is obviously something you have to practice so that you
Oh,
don't
yes.
go all the way through.
Of course, yes, it is a little tricky, but you soon get the knack of it.
Yes.
And you can do this to it, you see. You can crack the paper along the scored line, and it will bend, as you see, into the same wavy shape. It's most curious, this. And then, having done that, I mean, I can now show you one that's a little bit more prepared. And to make it look more interesting, you can cut the edges like this. You see, along the end of the waveform, and you will get a shape rather like this when you've finished it.
So the cutting is to finish it off.
That's right.
Well, I can see all the methods that you've explained on the yacht. The sails are biased, and the cabin, that's folded, isn't
That's
it?
right, yes.
And the waves, that's where you've scored, and you've cut as well to make it an interesting shape.
That's so, yeah.
Now, how do you get them all to join together?
Simply use glue, no problem.
Well, that sounds very simple. I'm sure it isn't. If you take the horse, for instance, that's very complicated, isn't it?
Whenever I design a paper sculpture, I always make a very careful drawing first, almost exactly as it's going to look, as near as I can get it. And then I plan the shapes on the drawing, knowing that they will form the forms I need in 3 dimensions. And then trace those off and cut them out.
You prepared something for Science Workshop, haven't you?
I have. This is a third of a circle. If one took it right round, you see, you would have a complete circle there. Now, if I bias this with my ruler again, I can bend it like that, and it will form a cone.
Well, that's surprising, isn't it, that that shape ends up as a cone.
This is another of the peculiarities of paper, you see. That's very soft and floppy. This is very rigid. You can almost stand on it.
And that's the basis now, is it, for your...
For this sculpture I'm going to make,
What happens next?
Well, we'll get another sector of a circle, slightly different in design. And this time we will cut some little fronds in it to make it more interesting. There. I won't do the whole lot. We'll take a little prepared one again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you get. You bend that around. Get another prepared one. And there, you then add a little biasing again with your finger and thumb, just to make them turn out at the end slightly, all the way around, and drop it on there.
It's going to be a lady in a grass skirt.
That's an idea, actually. And then here's another one. Put that on. You'll see that the fronds get smaller towards the top. The whole's been designed carefully. It just doesn't have hands.
You bias each
And
one.
yes, that's
here,
right.
yeah.
That'll do.
It's a Christmas tree.
It's a little more complicated than that. There's this template of bits which I want to put on top of this sculpture. We start with these two, which I'll score like this. You will see that they're following the same principle as the wave scores. And then there are two of those because they go back to back like that. Then we take all the others, assemble them together, and we'll get this. And that simply goes on the top.
That's beautiful.
And if you want a coloured one, no problem.
And how do you get from this to this? Do you use coloured paper here?
No, I don't do that because coloured paper isn't usually of the right quality. So I always use good quality watercolour paper, and then I paint it afterwards with poster colour.
Well, that really is a magnificent cockatoo. So you have to use the right paper for the right job.
Absolutely, David.
Thank you, Bruce. You who collect all sorts of paper, have a look at the Science Workshop book. It'll show you how to divide paper into different groups according to how it's used.
David,
Lillian.
now you were suggesting that if something was made from fibres and it tore easily, it's paper, right?
Yes.
Well, try tearing this.
Well, it tears easily,
And it's made from fibres.
but it's called cloth.
That's right.
Yes, well,
David, just tear this, will you?
is it called paper?
Oh, it's used for airline envelopes.
Well, if you're going to make sweeping statements, you're likely to get caught out. Something for you to think about. Now, you know what that's called in Scotland, don't you?
A blue cloth?